So what we're going to do is we're going to do a lab, or start a lab today, that deals with whether a substance is ionic or covalent.
The objective of part A is to familiarize with the substances, so to see like if they have an odor or not, and to test like how they are on the finger and how they are with a like close up with a magnifying glass. Okay, now we have to smell each one of the elements and see if it has an odor. If it does, then it's a volatile, and if it doesn't, it's non-volatile. Every substance that we have in the box, and the two substances that don't have an odor are distilled water and Na2S2O3. The substances that we have that do have an odor is sucrose, ethanol, acetone, NaCl, and p-dichlorobenzone, and also Ki. Alright, so now we have to test each compound and like see how it is by looking at it through a magnifying glass and then feeling it with the fingers. Now we skipped the third one because Fly couldn't find the hot plates. So now we're doing problem 4. Now we're doing part 4. In this problem we have to put water into the test tube and then put the elements inside and try to dissolve it, and we're going to try to find the relative solubility of each compound.
Okay.
Now we're doing problem 5. It's basically the same thing, but instead of the tap water that we filled the tube with for problem 4, we're using acetone, which is that it's alcohol basically.
Hi. Okay, so a way to determine if a substance is covalent or ionic could be by smelling the substance. So if the substance had a fuel smell, like acetone, and a smell of fingernail remover, and the smell of alcohol, we know that they are flammable and therefore covalent. Another way to check to determine if it's covalent or ionic was that we took a magnifying glass and we just observed the crystal textures of the solids. And even though most of the covalent substances were liquids and most of the ionics were solids, we still had to make sure. So some crystals were pointy and some are cubic, like sugar, which had flat crystals. And ionic substances have sharp edges, and the covalent substances, the crystals of the covalent substances are flat. Okay, so we also heated up substances. It's not in the video because we couldn't record it, but we heated up substances to see if they melted easily. And we could see that some had low melting points and some had high melting ones. To check that, we didn't really record the melting points, we just waited. We waited a couple of minutes, and if it was more than 3 minutes, if it took more than 3 minutes to melt, we knew that it had a high melting point. From that we could conclude that if it had a high melting point, it was ionic, and if it had a low one, then it was covalent. Okay, so part 4 and part 5 were kind of the same because we had to take a substance, and firstly in part 4 we had to take our typical ionic substance, which was potassium iodide, and our typical covalent substance, which was C6H4Cl2, and we had to put them in water at the beginning and check the solubility in water. So both the ionic and the covalent substances were dissolved and soluble in water. But then in part 5, we took the substances and we mixed up the mixtures. So let's say we put salt with acetone, and we saw that it wouldn't dissolve, because we know that ionic substances dissolve only in other ionic substances, and the exception of water. Meanwhile, the covalent substances dissolve in other covalent substances, and they don't dissolve in ionic substances.